Well, that was kind of fun. Titans preseason wraps up 3-0 for what that's worth, 30 points for what that's worth. And we are here to break it all down with you on Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company. All you need, visit them online at leecompany.com. The Titans trust their home stadium to Lee Company to tackle their HVAC, plumbing, and electrical problems. They can protect your home too. Your next play, visit leecompany.com. Lee Company, all you need. 615-737-1045 is the number for you to jump in. I'm Lucas Panzica. He is Zach Lyons, making his Titans Talkback debut. Zach, happy to have you.
Oh, man, 30 points. The monkey is off the bag. I know it's just preseason, but it matters. Like, this kind of stuff matters.
The monkey is off the bag.
Yeah.
Okay.
You pretty much have set yourself up for success, and you scored 30 points with Malik Willis throwing 2 beautiful touchdown passes to Bryce Oliver. Credit to both those young players who may or may not be on the team come Tuesday at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. But it was beautiful. And they both, and I mean, you're talking about Malik Willis, who had 4 passes, and 2 of those were touchdowns for 54 yards. You couldn't have asked for, like, even if this may be his swan song for the Tennessee Titans, you couldn't have asked for a better finale, a better take a bow moment for Malik Willis.
I agree. Malik was good after taking 2 sacks early. He finished 3 of 4, 51 yards, 2 touchdowns, both of them to Bryce Oliver, including the 5-yard game winner late. But we'll start with the reason everybody probably showed up at their TVs today, and it's to watch Will Levis in the starting offense right out of the gates. They got 2 series, 10 points out of it. Levis, 7 of 8, 118 yards. What were your takeaways on the starting offense for 2 drives?
Well, they came out starting in 12 personnel, and Nick Vannett, who has been kind of silent throughout this whole preseason pretty much, and obviously in training camp as well. He's been the 3rd tight end. He's basically their, I guess the nicest way to put it is their Jeff Swaim. He's the guy that could both block and catch. And he's heavily involved on that first drive, catching 2 passes for 30 yards. And I thought it was interesting that for the first part of it, like 12 personnel, Lloyd Cushenberry was coming out, taking on 2 guys at certain points, just destroying them down the field. I thought the offensive linemen were getting down the field really quick. And I think that's really important. They were taking this very seriously. And I think for a team and a unit like the offensive line who played pretty much the entire first half, which is very important to note, that it was important that they get those things on tape, get those other kinks maybe worked out, build that chemistry, and I thought it was a really great drive. Super efficient, 2 drives, 4 for 4 for 65 yards on the first drive, 3 for 4 for 53 yards on the second drive for Will Levis, who actually, according to Titans Film Room on Twitter, Justin Graver of Titans Film Room, yards per attempt, 11.8 for Will Levis in the preseason. Completion percentage, 84.6% in the preseason for Will Levis, both those games. League leading for quarterbacks, minimum of 10 passes in the preseason as of this recording.
Okay, so first team offense does what you needed to see them do. Essentially, right? They march down the field. They get points out of both drives. In a perfect world, you like a touchdown on the second series. But did they check all of your boxes coming into the day, understanding we were going to get maybe a quarter out of the first team group, just picturing everything you wanted to see going in? Did you leave wanting anything as Will Levis took off his helmet on the sideline?
No, I think you would like to see Traylon Burks have, stood up on the field, maybe quit falling onto the ground. There was one time where he almost caused an interception. They were lucky that didn't get picked off, but that was with Mason Rudolph, not Will Levis. I look at it and I go, we were talking during the game, and you said, man, I really wish they'd get Calvin Ridley involved. And boom, Calvin Ridley pass. Boom, another Calvin Ridley pass. So they got Calvin Ridley involved. He ended the day 2 for 3 for 39 yards, which is a long of 33 out of that. You saw Tyler Boyd get hit by Will Levis, and that was a big long gain as well. That was they were kind of chewing up the zone, which is, again, it's against their second stringers for the New Orleans Saints, but you want to see your first string demolish the second string. Like, that's what you should see. You should see Tyler Boyd 1-for-1 for 22 yards. You should see Calvin Ridley with 39 yards, Nick Vannett with 30 yards. If you're going to be a first-string offense, you should be beating down as much as possible the inferior competition. And I think we saw that, especially from an offensive line blocking. I think I saw enough from that to say, even though Bryce Callahan said in his press conference, probably the starting lineup on the offensive line, I don't know why he's playing these silly games. Just they're the starting offensive line. Let's call it like it is. And you saw enough from Tony Pollard. You saw enough from Tajay Spears. At the end of the day, they played pretty flawlessly from a standpoint of no penalties on their side of the ball. The execution, getting in and out of the huddle, that's what you wanted to see from that starting offense. So they checked all the boxes for me.
This is Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company. All you need, visit them online at leecompany.com. So we want to hear from you. 615-737-1045. What'd you think of the starting offense, of Will Levis's performance today, and the defense with some takeaways from how T'Vondre Sweat flashed early on? We'll do that coming up next and take your phone calls. Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company on 104.5 The Zone. 615-737-1045. That is how you jump in to give your take on the Titans' 30-27 preseason win at the New Orleans Saints. They go 3-0 in Brian Callahan's first preseason as the Titans head coach. We are here brought to you by Lee Company. All you need. Visit them online at leecompany.com. The Titans trust their home stadium to Lee Company to tackle their HVAC, plumbing, and electrical problems. They can protect your home too. Your next play, visit leecompany.com. Lee Company, all you need. Alongside Zach Lyons, I'm Lucas Panzica. Kevin Dyson is off today, but here's the plan for Titans Talkback for the rest of this season. You will hear Zach, you will hear Kevin Dyson after each and every Titans regular season game with a interchanging revolving door of myself or Brent Doherty kind of driving the ship and just trying to get out of the way. But it's your Titans Talkback debut, Zach. So I know the last few days have kind of been a whirlwind as you officially launch your show, Zach and Blaine, with Blaine Bishop. But excited to have you, man, for the entirety of the season.
It kind of hit me again when the Titans Talkback intro was just playing and I heard my name on the radio between Kevin Dyson and radio legend Lucas Panzica. It's just, it's crazy. It's kind of surreal. Like, I never would have thought when we started Football and F Words in 2018 that, like, I'd be doing a show with two Titans legends, Blaine Bishop, with Blaine and Zach, Monday through Friday, 1 to 3 Central Standard Time, and then Titans Talkback with Kevin Dyson, which is kind of crazy because we were watching the Steve McNair documentary, me and my mom. Or that's not going to go well. Me and my wife were watching the Steve McNair documentary, and the Kevin Dyson, clips were playing and stuff like that. I was like, oh, that's who I'm going to be doing the show with.
Cool stuff. Yeah, Dice, like we said, will be back week 1 after the Chicago Bears game, which is 2 weeks from today. Roster cut-down day coming up on Tuesday. Titans have to be down to 53 players by Tuesday afternoon. We are also live on 104.5 The Zone TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch, where you can jump in on the F&M Bank chat. Let's go ahead and get to the phones. Before we start to talk a little bit about the defense and roster cuts, we will kick it off with Malika up first on Titans Talkback. Hey, Malika.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call, Mr. Lyons. I really love your show with you and Blaine that you guys just started. It was an amazing win. I feel like with Brian and Bill Callahan, there's just going to be a whole bunch of more wins coming. Everybody did their job. There's winning and more winning. Tighten up. Thanks for taking my call, guys. I'll talk to you during the season.
Thanks for the call, Malika.
Yeah, appreciate the kind words. And you can call me Zach. You don't have to call me Mr. Lyons. But, yeah, I think that what Bill Callahan stated after the first preseason win, he said, yeah, I get it, it's just preseason, but these victories matter to build a winning culture. And that's what Brian Callahan's doing. It's going to be the first of many. They still got a long ways to go as, on the offense and defense, but they're missing a couple of the starters on defense, so I'm not too concerned with some of the penalties that we saw in this game from the defense. But I think what Bill Callahan is building, he's building a good foundation, and we can laugh that it's like, oh, it's just preseason, it's this and that and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, a win is a win, and it matters to the players. And if it matters to the players, it should matter to the fans.
615-737-1045 is how you jump in. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the defense. You mentioned the penalties, totaling 8 for 67 yards against the Titans, most of those against the defense, specifically second and third team defense, especially one sequence with back-to-back penalties. There was a pass interference in there that basically walked the Saints into the red zone, which led to one of their scoring plays. I want to say the 11-yard touchdown run by Jacob Cabote early in the fourth quarter. But with the starting defense, right out of the gates, first 2 plays of the game, T'Vondre Sweat's the most notable player on the field.
Yeah, this is why I made the mom mishap earlier, is because T'Vondre Sweat was talking in the locker room, and he says he calls his mom every day, and that's in my notes. So I'm looking at my notes, and don't look at your notes when you're trying to talk.
Thank you for clarifying.
I'm not a pro yet to be able to try to do both. But T'Vondre Sweat, he was great. He knifed right through on like the first play, crashed through on another run to stop the run. He played 2 series in that opening drive, which is very important for what people have wanted to see from T'Vondre Sweat. They were worried about his conditioning and all that kind of stuff. And that to me, him playing all those plays back to back through the first drive and those two series, that mattered. And he had a quarterback Curry in the game. He was affecting the plays, even if it doesn't, show up on the stat sheet, because I don't think they credit him with the quarterback Curry. But in my mind, I saw him put some pressure on, and he definitely affects the plays, even if it does show up on the stat sheet, and that matters. And how can you not root for a guy that calls his mom every day? I don't even call my mom every day.
You should. You should call your mom after this.
Now I feel like I have to.
But that is T'Vondre Sweat, right?
Right.
Doesn't really show up in the stat sheet.
Yeah.
So much of what he does, I feel like that's how we're going to be talking about him this season. It's how you talk about him after watching him at Texas. He didn't have sacks jumping off the board all over the place.
5.5.
He ends up with 2 tackles today.
Yeah, 5.5 sacks, like you said, but he won the Outland Trophy. Like, you win the Outland Trophy with only putting up 5.5 sacks. That shows how you affect games. And he did an interview with Justin Mello, who does the Draft Network stuff and all that kind of stuff, big into the draft. He did an interview, and T'Vondre Sweat, because I was a big T'Vondre Sweat fan after the Senior Bowl for sure. And I was like, at the Senior Bowl, I'm like, if we get T'Vondre Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons, oh boy, that's going to be awesome. And then all this stuff came out, and, he had his personal issues and everything, but I stood by T'Vondre Sweat, the player, because this guy was a game wrecker. And his big thing is pushing the pocket, even if it doesn't result in a stat. If he's taking on 2 guys and pushing them back into the quarterback, that matters. That matters for Jeffrey Simmons. It matters for Harold Landry. It matters for whoever they're sending on the blitz. He's opening up some kind of lane, and that's what T'Vondre Sweat does, and that's why he won the Outland Trophy, and that's why we should all keep in mind the Outland Trophy winners on defense turn into All-Pros. They're always really good in the NFL over these last 10 to 15 years. It matters. And he got a lot of crap from fans, media, ever since he got drafted in the second round. I'm doing cartwheels over it. But that guy is a game wrecker, and you couldn't have asked for a better 2 games. I know his first game wasn't what you really wanted from a hype standpoint, because he was so hyped leading into that game. But you saw the shades of what he could be, and today he took that next leap. And that's what you want to see from a second-round rookie.
Real quick, the Outland Trophy winners of the last 10 years, you mentioned T'Vondre Sweat, Oluwatimi, the Michigan center, Jordan Davis, by the way, the trophy that goes to the best interior lineman in college football, offense or defense. 2021, Jordan Davis of Georgia, pretty good. 2020, Alex Leatherwood, Alabama, okay, first round, hadn't really quite panned out since then. 2019, Penei Sewell, Oregon, pretty good. 2018, Quinnen Williams, Alabama. 2017, Ed Oliver, Houston. 2016, Cam Robinson, Alabama. 2015, Joshua Garnett, Stanford. Then you start to get to Brandon Scherf and Aaron Donald. And point is, 7, 8 of those last 10 players are all-pro caliber players in the NFL. T'Vondre Sweat, we'll see if he adds to that list. And he did it today without Jeffrey Simmons. It was interesting in the first preseason game, where it was kind of this welcome to the NFL. When you're out there, you're going to get swallowed up. I mean, he was getting double-teamed over and over against San Francisco. Jeffrey Simmons not out there next to him. And Simmons dressed today, as did Harold Landry. Neither of them played, but you saw T'Vondre Sweat take another step in that he's making plays. And the whole point of putting him into this system is to pair him with Jeffrey Simmons. And it's easy to get excited at the type of havoc that could create, especially with the emphasis this coaching staff puts on pressure coming from the interior.
Yeah, and that's probably where they're going to have to generate pressure, right? Jeffrey Simmons is going to have to step up in a big way. And listen, I am not a detractor of Jeffrey Simmons in the bigger sense of that. I don't think he has not lived up to his contract or anything like that. I think he's done fine. He's played through injury. He's done what's been asked of him in a bad situation. But they need him to be the guy. And not to say that he has not been the guy for this defense, but they need him to be the guy. He needs to get double-digit sacks. He needs to get pressures. He needs to get knockdowns. He needs to stop the run. Because this edge group, listen, I love Jalen Harrell. I thought Jalen Harrell was a 5th-round talent, and they got in the 7th round. You're not going to find anybody that's going to love Jalen Harrell more in this fan base than probably his parents. But that's a dire situation behind Arden Key and Harold Landry. And it's really a dire situation just behind Harold Landry. That's why they're having to blitz. That's why they're having to send linebackers or safeties or corners and do these blitzing. So it's going to be very important that Tavondre Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons generate pressure, or at least generate enough, openings for other people to get sacks. They have to.
615-737-1045 is how you jump in. Titans win 30-27 over the Saints in New Orleans. And what was, dare I say, an entertaining preseason game?
Yeah.
There were ups and downs. There were crazy plays. The near kick six at the end, chased down by Thomas Odukoya to prevent the touchdown. Of the three preseason games, maybe it's because there's been so much more to be interested in. New coaching staff, Will Levis's progress, starters actually playing in the preseason. But I do feel like week 1 against San Francisco and week 3 today actually produced a couple decent football games.
Yeah, this preseason was definitely way more exciting than last year's preseason games. And that's something to say. The pick six was crazy. It was a 106-yard return that
the kick six
that Thomas Odukoya ended up pushing him out. It was Samson Nakua out at the 3-yard line, so saving that. Him and NPF, they were trying their best. Talk about two guys that showed their athleticism on that play. Basically Thomas Odukoya, who is 253 pounds, having to go that far to try and stop that play on the 3-yard line is insane. But can we also now put the Braden Narvison needs to be on this roster, needs to be the kicker to rest? I know they hit the first kick, but you got to be able to handle the pressure of being iced, and he did not handle the pressure of being iced. He actually fell short, and that matters when you're a kicker.
That was at the end of the first half, and you're right. He makes the first right as Dennis Allen is calling the timeout, and he's short on the second, a 58-yard attempt to close out the first half. Glad we got to see Nick Folk get out there, 39-yarder, drills it. Okay, he's good. Nick Folk's going to be this team's kicker in 2024. 615-737-1045 as we react to the Titans preseason win over New Orleans. Titans Talkback is presented by Lee Company. All you need, visit them online at leecompany.com. We go to Eric in Nashville next. Hey, Eric.
Hey, guys. I admitted it to your call screen. I hate to admit to you guys. I knew all this week that the game started at 1 o'clock from New Orleans. I went to church this morning, got home, and I got distracted because I got tired with some other stuff, didn't have the radio on. Then it was about 2:30. I said, the Titans are on. So I wound up missing the first half, but I turned it on just in time to hear the start of the second half. But the excuse I gave myself is the preseason. If this had been a regular season, it would have never happened because they had not played Sunday preseason. So I gave myself grace, but I know I'll be ready in 2 weeks to start the NFL season, so that won't happen again. But anyway, my comment on today's game is this. If this was Malik Willis' swan song, I'm so happy for him that he went out on a high note. But I'll say this. If they do make the decision to release him, do you think they go with 2 quarterbacks only, or do you think they look for another quarterback maybe to make the practice squad? Because I know they think about roster spots, because I know if he's released tonight, he's going to get picked up by somebody else. Which do you think is the option that they'll do, guys? Just 2 quarterbacks only, or would they try and find another quarterback for the practice squad? Guys, it's always good to talk to you. We'll talk to you soon, and I'm looking forward to start the season in 2 weeks.
Thanks, Eric.
Yeah, they'll have to have another quarterback for the practice squad because you want that quarterback to be your scout team quarterback. So, they won't claim one off waivers because if you claim one, whoever they claim off of waivers, not let go through and then sign as a free agent, but whoever they claim, that person has to go on your final 53. So unless they feel really strongly about the quarterback that they're claiming, if they cut Malik Willis, then I think they wait till it all clears out and then they sign someone and put them on the practice squad. Because here's the thing about the quarterback on the practice squad is a new rule for this year is that the quarterback that's on your practice squad can be called up an unlimited amount of times to the emergency quarterback spot. So that third quarterback spot on game days. So other players have a limited number of games that can be called up before they have to be put on the active roster. The practice squad guy could be called up as many times without ever having going on the active roster. So it's a big advantage. That's why I don't think a lot of teams will keep 3 quarterbacks. Maybe the Denver Broncos are probably the team because they're really high on Zach Wilson and Jarrett Stidham, both of them. I do think that if it came down to it, I would have a hard time finding a team that would claim one. But I do think that the Tennessee Titans, if they cut Malik, which I do think they will, if they cut Malik, they'll be able to find a quarterback to put on the practice squad, and that's what they need to do.
615-737-1045 for you to jump in. It's Titans Talkback presented by Lee Company. All you need, visit them online at leecompany.com. The Titans trust their home stadium to Lee Company to tackle their HVAC, plumbing, and electrical problems. They can protect your home too. Your next play, visit leecompany.com. Lee Company, all you need. We go to Terrence in Nashville up next on Titans Talkback. Hey, Terrence.
Hey, how you doing? Yeah, I really felt like everything that you needed to see in this preseason game, you got to see it. You wanted to see how the first team offense would drive down the field, which you would have hoped for them as a score, and they did that. You wanted to see Malik Willis, after they got behind, you wanted to say, okay, we know you could run, we know you could break a 30-yard or whatnot, but can you drive them down the field, and can you score a touchdown? And you got to see that. And then when the Saints went down and scored, you're like, okay, they're behind. Can you drive them down the field? Can you score it again? You know what I mean? And they did that. So, and not only did you see him score the touchdown, but he did it with his arm rather than his leg. So that was big. And then you wanted to see them win, and they did that. So, in my opinion, this was it wasn't a perfect game in what they did, but it was a perfect game in what you expected and what you wanted to see. So I'll hang up and listen.
Thanks, Terrence.
Yeah, I think he's right. I think it's maybe not the most exciting game from every aspect of football, and it is a preseason game, but you saw what you wanted. I think from the players that matter, you saw what you wanted. And if you are rooting for a player's story, I think you saw what you wanted from Malik Willis. I think you saw what you wanted from Bryce Oliver, who I've been a big Bryce Oliver fan. I don't think he's going to make the team. There's some people in the YouTube chat that think that Bryce Oliver's made a case to keep 7. And listen, if they keep 7 wide receivers and Bryce Oliver is that guy, I'll be ecstatic. I just don't think that's realistic. I think that Bryce Oliver will clear waivers and will go into a practice squad here for the Tennessee Titans. And I think that's a good thing, because I think what people miss on Bryce Oliver is that as much grief as I give Nick Westbrook-Akine in a joking manner, he's a kryptonite for other wide receivers. I'm convinced that he's the reason Treylon Burks and Kyle Phillips can't stay healthy, is because he is sucking the life force out of them. But I do think that having a guy like NWI, who started off as an undrafted free agent, who has gotten now 2 different contracts from the Tennessee Titans and has stuck around and made a name for himself as being a reliable, dependable receiver who's always in the right spot, matters, because he's an undrafted free agent. He was just in Bryce Oliver's shoes a couple of years ago. He is a good mentor for Bryce Oliver to have, and a good example of an undrafted free agent who can come in and be a contributor on some level. And I think that Bryce Oliver is probably the best undrafted free agent wide receiver the Tennessee Titans have had in a long time, which is ironic because everybody always falls in love with an undrafted free agent wide receiver in this fan base, and they think they're way better than they are. But Bryce Oliver is the best. I mean, he's better than Trey McBride. Let's go back a few years. He's better than Trey McBride.
Yeah, best since NWI in 2020.
Yeah. And I think he's light years better than NWI right now as far as Bryce Oliver, undrafted free agent, and Nick Westbrook, undrafted free agent rookie. I think Bryce Oliver has shown more. It's just that it's going to be hard to find a spot for him on this roster. And I think that spending time in this offense, learning more of the nuances and everything, again, on the scout team with maybe even Malik Willis, who could turn into quarterback 2 for this team next year if he were to stay on the practice squad under the same system, have some stability in offensive scheme. Those 2 guys can do a lot for themselves and each other to help their case for next year for making this final 53. And I think that is very important. It's not just about what can you do for me in 2024 with some of these guys, what can you do for me in 2025 and beyond. And the Oliver Geddon is coming in 2025.
Bryce Oliver, throughout the course of the preseason, 8 catches for 90 yards and 2 touchdowns. David Martin Robinson, another one of those UDFA rookies that has stood out on offense over the course of preseason. 7 catches for 115 yards, 2 catches for 47 yards just today. So let's say Bryce Oliver, David Martin Robinson, Malik Willis, those 3 players, will you rank them for me in terms of chances to make the initial 53 on Tuesday?
DMR, Malik Willis, and Bryce Oliver. To be completely objective, that's how I would view it. And DMR, I think, has made one of the better cases that we've seen from a player in these last few years to make the team. He's been consistent every game. Every game he's made a play or done something, whether it's blocking. I mean, he bulldozed a guy today on a Malik Willis run. And I think what he has shown is that he can do all 3 phases of the game. Listen, none of those guys are where they need to be at to be starters in this league, to be considered active on game days. But I think DMR has shown enough to put him on the 53, to make sure that, especially with Josh Wiley and concussion protocol, you may need a third body at tight end. They're not a 1-for-1 substitution, but you need that third body at tight end. And he has shown that whether it's with Mason Rudolph or whether it's with Malik Willis, then you put him with a guy like Will Levis. There's a lot to be said about a better quarterback and now a tight end being able to take that next step. So I kind of look at it and I go, DMR, I think he's the guy, and that's kind of how you should be thinking about these roster cuts. It's not DMR versus Steve Stylianos or Nick Vanette or Thomas Odukoya. It's DMR versus Malik Willis. It's DMR versus Bryce Oliver. It's DMR versus Mason Kinsey. Maybe even James Williams, who I do think makes it. But maybe Otis Reese is a better example. Keaton Ellis or Gabe Judy Lawley or Trey Avery. It's those back-end roster guys are battling each other. It's not the position room. And that's something that Brian Callahan has been pretty straightforward and consistent with. It's about those players, not the position.
615-737-1045 is how you jump in. It's Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company. All you need, visit them online at leecompany.com. Really quickly, let's take a look at the Kroger sacks for cash. Tonight, the Titans had 1 sack, courtesy of Shane Ray. For the season, Kroger's donation to Second Harvest Food Bank of Middle Tennessee now stands at $600, courtesy of that 1 sack. Every time the Titans sack the opposing team's quarterback, Kroger donates $100 to Second Harvest Food Bank of Middle Tennessee from Kroger. Through its Zero Hunger, Zero Waste plan, Kroger is committed to ending hunger in our communities. When we come back, more of your phone calls, and we'll take a closer look at what we saw from the run game with the starting offense. It's Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company on 104.5 The Zone. Titans Talkback is presented by Lee Company. All you need, visit them online at leecompany.com. 615-737-1045 is the number. Alongside Zach Lyons, I'm Lucas Panzica. Dr. Kevin Dyson off tonight. He will be back 2 weeks from today because that is when the Titans kick off the Brian Callahan era officially at the Chicago Bears. Titans win 30-27 at the New Orleans Saints to finish the preseason 3-0. We mentioned Will Levis with the starting offense, 7 of 8 for 118 yards, a touchdown drive, and a field goal drive. Mason Rudolph, 11 of 15, 114 yards. Malik Willis, 3 of 4 for 51 yards, 2 touchdowns, both of them thrown to Bryce Oliver. Willis added 3 carries for 29 yards. Jabari Small led the way rushing the football, 10 carries for 64 yards. Bryce Oliver, the lead receiver, 3 catches for 52 yards. But let's talk about that run game a little more and what we saw from Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears. Pretty evenly balanced. Spears, 4 carries for 12 yards. Pollard, 5 carries for 17 yards. And that takes us to the Higginbotham right call of the game as we saw Brian Callahan get creative for a little bit with a 4th and 1 conversion where they line up in the eye looking like they're going to run it up the gut, Zach, and then it's a little play-action screen pass with the fake handoff to Pollard. He leaks out into the right flat. Levis dumps it down to him, and they keep it moving on a scoring drive.
Love it. I mean, I when it happened, we heard it on the radio first before we actually saw it, and I'm like, even hearing it on the radio, I'm like, oh, that gets me going. Like, we're not just pounding it up the middle. We're actually going to go on the outside, and that's where you should go. You should go on the outside. The data tells you that you have a higher success rate going away from the outside on certain downs and distances, and I was just ecstatic because that to me shows creativity. It also shows a lot of confidence in your quarterback to be able to make that play. It seems very easy, but sometimes those angles and stuff are the hardest passes to make. Not overthrowing the guy, not putting it in the wrong spot, and so to me shows confidence in Will Levis, shows confidence in the offensive line to be able to stand up because everybody's crashing that pocket, thinking that you are going to be running up the middle. So to me, it's like it's confidence in yourself, the team. It's amazing. This is why it's the play of the game. It's awesome. And listen, there were some other plays, right? Like Tyjae Spears is jumping on some guy's shoulder like he's Finn Balor from WWE. There's Caleb Farley knocking off some guy's helmet. But that was the play of the game because that showed those are flashy plays that are great. But that play shows you on so many levels what Brian Callahan, this offense, can do in just a short area of the field.
It's our Higginbotham right call of the game. Higginbotham can be your business teammate by helping manage your risks, limit your liability, put a plan of action in place, and control your costs. Insurance plans for your company and your assets, it's all online at higginbotham.com. So let's talk a little more about the personnel and the play calling with that first team offense as they get down to the 1 yard line on that first offensive series where they marched 9 plays down the field to punch it in and take a 7-0 lead on a Tony Pollard 1 yard touchdown. That brings us to the Kellum science behind the stat. From autism to arthritis, your body, your calls, your solution. Call 615-850-4415 for your consultation. The science behind the stat brought to you by Kellum, Zach, is that there were 2,706 pounds blocking for Tony Pollard on that 1 yard touchdown. The starting 5 on the offensive line, plus tight end Thomas Odukoya, tight end Nick Vanette, right tackle, or offensive tackle, I suppose I should say, John Ojukwu, and offensive lineman Daniel Brunskill in the game.
Who was a fullback on that particular play. And he was actually fullback on 2 plays in the run game. But like I went through and we did the math. And 2,706 pounds between 9 players. So as Tony Pollard, Will Levis are not included, but 2,706 pounds blocking and making way for Tony Pollard to score the touchdown. It was a beautiful thing to see. Mike Keith on the call said, jumbo, jumbo, jumbo package. And you can't describe it better than that.
You commented when we were sitting in here watching that play, interesting that we're talking about a team that's going to be playing a lot of 11 personnel, potentially keeping 4 tight ends if they just can't keep David Martin Robinson off the 53, which kind of seems to be where we're trending. So what does that make you think about what we're going to see from this Titans offense in 2024?
Well, I mean, you saw 2 tight ends here and then 2 extra offensive linemen as well. it just shows to me, because they started off at 12 personnel as well. I do think that we're going to see 11 personnel more than what we have in the past. But I keep going back to the stuff that we have seen coming out of practice, or at least I've heard from people coming out of practice, and the reports are there's a lot of 12 personnel being practiced and being used. And 12 personnel is not going to go away, and Will Levis seems to thrive and be efficient out of 12 personnel. You get an extra blocker, and you get another safety valve. At the same time, something in the flats, something up the seam, something deep. I think we're going to see a lot of 12 personnel. So I think that's why it's important to maybe keep a DMR, a fourth tight end, where it doesn't make sense like right off the bat when you kind of think about, because you're thinking the majority of the stuff's going to go to DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, and Tyler Boyd. Then you got the two running backs, right? They're obviously going to be involved in the screen game. They're going to be split out wide on a couple of plays. Then you got Chig. Then you got Josh Wiley. Do you really have another room to keep a fourth tight end? Well, yeah, if you start cranking the numbers and putting them all together, you can get to 47 pretty easily, and then you got 5 or 6 spots, and you're kind of like, yeah, DMR is better than a lot of these other guys they could keep. I mean, are they going to keep, Kearis Jackson? Probably not. Are they going to keep Mason Kinsey? Probably not. Are they going to keep, Leroy Watson, who a lot of people thought, because they traded for him and he has history with Bill Callahan, that he was a lock for this team? Leroy Watson did not play a single snap tonight.
Yeah, the tackle that they acquired from Cleveland.
You're right. And here he is, didn't play a single snap. As far as we know, he's healthy. And he's not playing a single snap at all in a game where he probably needs to. It just seems like to me DMR is the best guy, and he plays special teams. He can do some stuff that maybe if Josh Wiley or Chig go down, you have him on your team. He's been with the first team. He has that chemistry building with Will Levis behind the scenes. All that kind of stuff kind of matters. And he's a dude. He's a football player. I think Coach Mack described him as a football player, and then when he put the pads on him, he's a football player or something like that. It was a Mackism that I'm probably butchering, but it's like, dude's a player. He's a dude. And that matters. This team needs dudes, not just guys.
Joseph on the F&M Bank chat says they better keep David Martin Robinson. OG says on YouTube, the edge rusher Harrell deserves a look too. I think we're all pretty confident Jalen Harrell makes this 53-man roster, the 7th-round rookie out of Michigan. You can join us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch, 1045 The Zone TV. And you can call in 615-737-1045. Titans beat the Saints on the road in the preseason 30-27. Brought to you by Lee Company. All you need, visit them online at leecompany.com. The Titans trust their home stadium to Lee Company to tackle their HVAC, plumbing, and electrical problems. They can protect your home too. Your next play, visit leecompany.com. Lee Company. All you need. Larry in Clarksville is up next on Titans Talkback. Hey, Larry.
Hey, brother, thanks for taking my call. And I'm almost ashamed to call in because I feel so ignorant compared to most of your callers and to you guys just on the game. I love it. I mean, I didn't even get into football until I was in my teens. And my best friend was an obstinate Dallas Cowboy a-hole, so I became a Steelers lover, and then we won 4 Super Bowls. So, but when we got the Titans, I have been there. I still have my original Steve McNair jersey. I was there for the Music City Miracle, and there were times today, and there were some mistakes made in today's game, but there's always going to be some mistakes made, even by the first team. But, I mean, there were a couple of times I was worried, but I think this new coach has a plan, and I think he's got something going on, man, and I'll just hang up and let you guys talk.
Thanks, Larry.
Sounds like a smart thing to me. I mean, Larry said that he feels a little bit ignorant compared to other callers, but to me, that seems like a smart thing because he's right. There seems to be a plan. There seems to be a counterpunch, a jab. Whereas with the previous regime, and heck, you could probably go all the way back to the Fisher days, that kind of seemed like if one thing wasn't working, one aspect of their offense or one aspect of their defense, there was no pivot. There was just, they were stuck in the mud and they didn't know what to do, and they were backed into a corner and they were getting TKO'd at some point during the match. And this Brian Callahan, he has studied He went on the Athletic Football Show podcast, and he talked about how he studied play callers. He watches game film, but for play calling. Like Matt LaFleur, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, he's watching these guys call plays, take notes, and what those guys all have in common is that they have a counterpunch. If their run game's not working, we can get pass to the wide receivers. If their wide receivers aren't catching the ball, but the run game's working, well, we'll do play action, throw to the tight ends. Everything like that, they are building up on, and that is something that Brian Callahan does bring to the table. He's still green as a play caller, but I really like what I've seen from his play calling these 3 preseason games. And it has to feel good for him to see successful offensive drives and to also win. And for him winning based off the offense and the play calling and all this kind of stuff, that's a win for him. That's a win for Denard. That's confidence builders, and you build on top of that. So I agree with Larry. Brian Callahan has a plan. Denard Wilson has a plan. And I can't wait to see how that plan evolves over the course of the regular season, because what we're seeing now is bland play calling, bland plays. It's not the whole, it's like 1% of a 100% playbook. Like it's 1%. And I'm just excited.
A few other takeaways from today. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. Haven't talked a lot about special teams. I know we mentioned the Nick Folk one made field goal. His lone attempt of the day is put through, as well as his lone extra point attempt. And Braden Narvison was 2 for 3 with his field goal attempts. The only miss, the 58-yarder that fell short at the end of the first half and almost was run back by Samson Nakua for a kick 6 before Thomas Odukoya tracked him down. That sent the Titans into the locker room with a 13-10 halftime lead. Great to see Ryan Stonehouse back out there. If you're a Titans fan, 2 punts, an average of over 43 yards per punt. One of those a little bit shorter, I believe a 34-yarder as he pinned the Saints inside their own 10-yard line. And that was big because Saints had a negative play. They're backed up. They have to punt it from the back of their own end zone. Eric Garrett, 22-yard return, sets up the Titans at the 25 inside the 2-minute warning. And the game-winning drive ensues with a Bryce Oliver 5-yard touchdown pass from Malik Willis. So Ryan Stonehouse appeared to be in midseason form in his first game action since that terrible injury against the Colts last season.
Well, as Buck Rising pointed out, it's been 266 days since he had a punt, and he punted it 53 yards. And you're right. One of the big things they worked on with him last year was his pinpoint accuracy on punts to be able to pin people back from a shorter distance on the field. And he did that too. So you got to see the leg. You got to see the accuracy and the control. That's exactly what you needed to see. And listen, Ryan Stonehouse, you need an elite punter. They were talking about it on the show. First thing this morning, the pregame show, Kayla, B-Hop, and Blaine were actually talking about this exact thing because they were talking about all the punters that they've had, the Tennessee Titans have had. It's important to flip the field. It's important to make the offense have to drive the full length of the field. And the Tennessee Titans, I don't know why, we talk about running back, Mount Rushmores, and are the Tennessee Titans have the best running back room ever, group or whatever throughout the years. I think they have the best punting group. Like, let's give some credit to these punters. And Ryan Stonehouse is awesome. I'm so glad that he is, because that was a nasty, nasty hit that he took twice in a row last year. And for him to come back this early, this soon, and to show the leg strength and show the accuracy, that's super important as well. Like, there's a lot of important stuff that happens in a preseason game that carries with you. It's foundation building. That's what the preseason is for. And Ryan Stonehouse has to be feeling pretty good himself heading into the regular season against the Bears in a few weeks.
He sat down with us at training camp last week, and it was a really good conversation. There were a lot of misconceptions about his injury. There was reporting. There was talk about a broken leg after that injury. He said that wasn't necessarily accurate, so he really laid it out for us on the show. You can go back and watch that interview on YouTube, 1045 The Zone's YouTube page. Subscribe while you're there for the great content across every show here on The Zone. But yes, great to see Ryan Stonehouse back out there holding, punting, doing Ryan Stonehouse things. Somebody called in and asked Jackson a question, Zach, as we were talking about how much 11 versus 12 personnel we're going to see in this offense. If you could go into that a little bit more, lay out what it means and why it's important in the context of a Brian Callahan offense.
No problem. 11 personnel is, so the numbers that you hear go running back, tight end. So that's the number of running backs, the number of tight ends you have on the field. So 11 personnel is one running back, one tight end. That leaves 3 other pass catchers or offensive skill players in some situations. So that would be a wide receiver. So that means 3 wide receiver sets. So 11 personnel, or more commonly known as 3 wide receiver sets, is what that means. So that means, you'd have D-Hop, Tyler Boyd, Calvin Ridley, Chika Okonkwo. Then you would have Tajay Spears or Tony Pollard is in 11 personnel. In a 12 personnel, that's 1 running back and 2 tight ends. So that is why you'll find a lot of quarterbacks, a lot of data supports that a lot of quarterbacks that may struggle in 11 personnel will see their fortunes flip in 12 personnel because they'll have an extra blocker in, or they'll have an extra pass catcher that maybe creates a mismatch against a linebacker. So a 12 is 1 running back, 2 tight ends. So there's talks of like 21. Last year when you saw Derrick Henry and Tajay Spears on the field at the same time, I'm sure that you'll see Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard at the same time. That could be 21 or 22, depending on how many wide receivers they have or how many tight ends, however you want to look at it. So that's what those numbers mean. It goes running back, then tight end in those numbers, number of running back and number of tight ends. Coach Mack, funny story. Did a dinner with Coach Mack, won a raffle or whatever, did a dinner with him. Me and my Football and Other F Words co-founder, Mr. Lebowski, back in the day went. And I knew what that was. Mr. Lebowski didn't know those personnel questions, and Mac grilled him. He would stop. It was a film study session. He would stop, turn to Lebowski, say, okay, I'm doing 12 personnel. What does that mean? And he would stutter every time and wouldn't get it. So good Coach Mack drilled it into my head for sure at the expense of Mr. Lebowski on how to understand that.
Many people are smarter after just one sit down with Coach Dave McGinnis. On the F&M Bank chat, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch, 104.5 The Zone TV, Browning asks the question, who do you see as the most desirable cut player? Someone who another team might take a shot with?
Ooh, that's a good question, Browning. I would say probably I'm a little convinced after talking to Mike Herndon on Football and Other F Words on Wednesday here on Zone TV, and seeing his performance today, maybe the Ravens do take a shot on Malik Willis. He seems like a player that would fit that system. They do have Josh Johnson as a backup, and I'm not necessarily sure that he's better than Josh Johnson. But also Josh Johnson has been in the league for like 9 or 10 years. So maybe they take a chance, put Malik Willis on the 53, claim him off waivers, put him off the 53, and they develop him to be their backup. Remember, Snoop Huntley just a couple of years ago went to the Pro Bowl as the Ravens backup, which should tell you a lot about the Pro Bowl.
Yes.
But maybe they can get a younger version of that guy who could step in for Lamar Jackson, who has mysterious illnesses pop up or who sometimes gets injured with his style of play. Maybe Malik Willis is a fit there. That would probably be the most desirable guy that I can think of because I don't think any of the other guys are worth. That's the thing. Claims, you're talking about maybe among all 32 teams, roughly on a normal scale, 20 claims being made. So a lot of people don't claim because you have to put them on the 53. And most of the people being cut, if they're not going to make another team's 53, small chance they can make your 53 better. But there are certain players that do. So Malik Willis probably the best out of the bunch, most desirable, because I think they're keeping David Martin Robinson.
So with that said, what is the most likely scenario to you? They keep 4 tight ends with David Martin Robinson, they keep 3 quarterbacks with Malik Willis, or they keep 4 running backs with both Hassan Haskins and Julius Chestnut making the roster?
Ooh, that's interesting. I would say that 4 tight ends and 4 running backs are the same. And because I think that they are going to keep 4 of both. I think Hassan Haskins has shown enough over his years and this year that he can do something on special teams. He's even been dubbed a special teams demon. And we saw it when Mike Vrabel called Jack Gibbon Dr. Gibby. And if you got a nickname from the coach or you got a designation from the coach like that, you're making the team. And I know that Hassan Haskins does not provide you maybe the stuff that Julius Chestnut does on offense, but what he does on special teams does matter. DMR provides you with a little bit of both. So I kind of think, and Josh Wiley, injury history, I just kind of think that both those guys are on equal footing as far as 4 running backs, 4 tight ends making this team. I know that's not sexy. That's not what people want to hear. And I know that's not the feel-good story for some people, right? I mean, Malik Willis is the feel-good story, and I get it. But we got to call it like it is. And Malik Willis right now, I think he had a great game today. Just 4 passes, 6 dropbacks. 2 of those were sacks as well. You know, he didn't even see a corner blitz coming at all. So
first 2 snaps.
Yeah. First 2 snaps were sacks. So, you know, he's got some issues, but he has progressed, but you can't just keep someone on the roster that just has progressed. They have to be able to contribute in some form or fashion down the line. And again, I think that if you're talking about the best 53 players, the 53 players that are the best at their job, regardless of position, I feel like Hassan Haskins and DMR crack that 53. They may not stay long. It's an initial 53, right?
Yeah.
A lot of these guys that make the initial 53 get cut for waiver claims. So, but I think that on the initial 53 best players on this roster, both Hassan Haskins and David Martin Robinson are those guys.
Last chance for you to jump in on the phone, 615-737-1045. It's Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company. All you need, visit them online at leecompany.com. Alongside Zach Lyons, I'm Lucas Panzica. Jackson Williams is our producer. So Jabari Small had his best performance of the preseason tonight. I know he had that fumble in the third quarter. It's going to be a negative mark on him, but overall, he bounced back and had 10 carries, 64 yards, 6.4 yards per carry is by far the best average he's had in the preseason, but hard to envision Jabari Small making this 53.
Yeah, I mean, it's been hard to envision that since his first game, but again, you like to see progress. He made progress from that disastrous 1.8 yards per carry first game, where he wasn't going anywhere on any of his runs. But you like to see the progress. You like to see the fight. And that's a guy that will, again, come on the practice squad. He'll be on the practice squad, and he'll be there. And listen, Hassan Haskins goes down, or a kick returner goes down, a punt returner goes down. Jabari Small did practice the return spots throughout the offseason. I don't think he got a return at any point in these preseason games. If he did, it was just very not noticeable, I guess. But he's a guy that you stash, and he's an emergency running back if one of your guys gets hurt, because he was a third down running back for them. He did catch screen passes throughout the last 2 games. I just don't see how he can make the team.
Last call of the night, we go to Mike in Gallatin to wrap us up. Hey, Mike.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call. My biggest concern after just looking at the team was the depth that we have at linebacker. It got even thinner with Campbell going down. Is that where the obvious place to look for a waiver claim would be?
Well, let me ask you this, Zach, real quick, not to interrupt you. Outside linebacker, off-ball linebacker, which Mike is talking about, or tackle depth? Most concerning to you between those 3?
Oh, gosh. Probably now with Chance Campbell being injured, I would say linebacker depth, because Otis Reese is in concussion. Cedric Gray we don't know where Cedric Gray is at in his process to come back to the field. So that leaves James Williams. And I love me some James Williams. I mean, he is a rocket shot out of a cannon. But again, if you got James Williams as your third linebacker who's rotating in and out because Chance Campbell's injured and Otis Reese isn't out of concussion protocol, that's bad. That's not good. That's not good depth. And it could be good depth in the future. It's just not good depth in the first few weeks of playing football. And you're going up against an offense with Cole Kmet, with 3 good wide receivers in Chicago. Those are needed. I expect that, depending on the severity of the Chance Campbell injury, linebacker, because this will answer D. Good's question in the comments as well. What positions are you looking for the Titans to churn? I think back end of the cornerback depth, I think that the linebacker depth, if Chance Campbell's been injured and it's a serious injury, offensive tackle depth is just terrifying. It's just bad. So that will get churned out. And then also the edge. I like Rashad Weaver will likely make this team. Will Rashad Weaver be on this team in a week? We'll see.
There you go. That does it for the Titans 2024 preseason. Roster cut day is Tuesday afternoon. The Titans will go down to 53 week 1, 2 weeks from tonight at the Chicago Bears. Zach Lyons, this has been fun. Why don't we do it again in a couple weeks?
Can't wait. Can't wait to be in the studio with Dr. Dyson.
No doubt. He will be back alongside Zach Lyons, and Brent Doherty will step in for Titans Talkback in 2 weeks for week 1. Looking forward to it. As always, be sure to join us all week long for more Titans coverage, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. on the Zone lineup. Titans radio coverage is produced by Philip Noel and Brad Willis. The studio producer is Joseph Hunkapiller. The promotions director is Rich Ferris. The director of sales, Hunter Rice. General manager, Allison Warren. Operations manager, Paul Mason. And the executive producer of Titans radio is Rhett Bryan. For our producer, Jackson Williams, and for Zach Lyons, I'm Lucas Panzica. The final score tonight, Titans 30, Saints 27 in the preseason finale. And we will talk to you in 2 weeks on Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company.